Well, guys, look at this. This is what I'm going to be working on this morning for a little while. This is a 95 Cobra Mustang. This thing is in great shape. It's got the chrome Cobra R wheels on it. Just an all-around sweet car. We're going to be putting a new window motor in it today. All right, guys, we're going to be taking this trim panel off. Take note that I've got tape on the edge of the door, and I got this foam and a piece of cardboard to keep the door from getting damaged. This car is amazingly nice. Here's a 95. It's only got like 29,000 miles on it. This car is sweet. But even if it wasn't sweet, we don't want to tear up somebody else's car. Okay. The owner, I have not diagnosed this. The owner has gone ahead and purchased his own brand new replacement motor, and I did try the button and the window doesn't want to go down, and it probably is the motor, but it could also be the regulator. But we're going to take it apart and find out. Replacing window regulators and motors is something we do all the time in a body shop, so this is a valuable video for you guys to watch. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a hold of this tweeter cover, and it pretty much just pulls up and it pops off. You can see the little lips that it grabs a hold of. There's that one. Now we've got to remove this bezel. Normally I can push this lip down. It's kind of hard to do it with me holding this phone. I'm going to get out my trusty red handle clip tool that I use for everything. There we go. And then we're going to kind of lift it up. Now I've got to put a slight bit of pressure under here. I don't want to break the plastic for easy with it. I'm gonna have to use two hands, and we'll put this phone down for a second. There, that's off. That's that little clip right there goes into that little square hole. It's just I had to use two hands to do it. I didn't want to break it. And if you guys mess with them, like I said, this car is in great shape. You see how this is satin black? That's actually a slight, it's like a rubberized coating on there, and this car is in great shape. Most of the time that stuff is all chewed up from people's fingernails and stuff, but I definitely don't want to mess any of this up. And none of the clips were broke. I think it's the first time this car's ever been into. Now I'm going to remove those two Phillips head screws. They are holding down the switch assembly. I'm not going to film it because it takes two hands, but I think you can understand what's getting ready to take place. And that's what you're left with. Those two screws came out and it pulls right out of there. Another trick. Whenever I'm doing a door panel job and that's all I'm doing, I always just use the floor mat. In this case, this thing's clean. I use the floor mat to keep the screws. They don't go running around getting kicked under the car. It's a good place to keep them. And you can see there are two screws behind that bezel. Got them out, no problem. And there is one lonely push clip right there. Again, using the trusty red handle clip tool. There we are. These are called bezels. That plastic piece I took off, this is called a bezel. Anything that surrounds something in the car wheel, we call it a bezel. So this is another bezel, door handle bezel. I'm gonna pull it off. It's gonna take two hands, or at least my right hand. I think it's going to take my red handle clip tool. Again, just let me switch hands here. I'm struggling, not to mention it is hot today, guys. Let me put this phone down. I don't want to break anything. Okay, it's out. It just held in there with that. Now, as you can see, I mean, like I said, everything's real good and tight on this car because it hasn't been apart. You just got to take your time, and that way you don't tear anything up. Another helpful hint to keep in remember guys, when you start taking these doors apart and messing with this, it is real easy to hit the lock button. And I left the battery hooked up because I don't want to mess with the man's radio settings or anything else. One thing I always do, I either take the keys out of the ignition and set them off to the side, and another thing is I'll put the other window down if I can, because you can lock yourself out of a car in a heartbeat. I've done it many a time. I had a phone call in the middle of trying to take this off. I don't know what I filmed and what I didn't. Hopefully I'll figure it out in the editing. Anyway, like I said, this door panel just picks up and comes off, and I got to wiggle it around this tweeter cover, I believe. I'm going to put the phone down and get it off, and then I'll show you what I did. All right, I really didn't have to take that bolt out of there at all. As I remembered, I used to, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, see these little tabs right here? They slide into those square holes down there, and it's just a matter of lifting up and it comes right off. This here is called a vapor barrier, and it is very important. It's not just a piece of plastic there for looks. It keeps moisture and all that stuff out of the inside of the cabin. It's very important. And as you can see, this one's in great shape. Again, you guys are getting tired of hearing me say it, but normally these cars, not just Mustangs, cars of this age have been apart a million times. So I'm going to be careful. Sometimes if this doesn't want to peel off very nicely, because it's kind of glued on from the factory, it looks like it's going to come off okay. Yeah, it's going to come off all right. But if it didn't, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take a nice sharp razor blade and I'll cut it out and peel it off. That way I don't mess it all up. And then when I put it back up there, I'll just tape it up. But this one's going to come out all right. Okay. I've pulled that plastic back. It came off really nice. Didn't damage anything. The reason I didn't pull it all the way off, the speaker is behind here, and the speaker is pop riveted on with big 1/4-inch pop rivets. That's a 1/4-inch pop rivet. And I didn't want to have to take that off just to take that plastic. It's out of my way. Now, here is the situation we're at right now. This is called a window regulator. This is the mechanism, and this one's like a scissor setup. There's like an X in there, and it rolls on this track. And the motor's all the way down here. Now here's the trick. I've got to pull all of this mess off, which means I'm going to have to put the window down, which I already told you the window won't go down. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get this window down. I've got to take the window, off the regulator, pull the regulator out, which is going to require me drilling all of these pop rivets out, which I'll show you. A couple bolts. These are 11mm nuts. That's what I've got to do. Right now I'm going to put the phone down and see if I can finagle this window down to get to the bolts that are holding it to the glass. Got the key on. Now it's wanting to go down. It won't go back up, so we want to try and get this right on the first shot. See? All right. Oh, it fell down a little too far. Let's see if it will go back up. Oh, there we go. Okay, you can see through that hole there. I don't know if you can see or not. The sun's shining in my eyes. Right there. Now I got to knock them rivets out and pull that window out. See, because the sun's shining in my eyes there. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you one that you can see. Because that there is a 1/4-inch pop rivet. What I have to do is I have to knock that center out. That center is a mandrel. I'll show you what that looks like when we go to put them back in. I got to knock that out, and then I'll have to drill the head of it off. Now, I have all kinds of center punches just for center punches. But let me show you something that I do all the time. You know how I love Harbor Freight. I know they got a bunch of junk stuff, but they got a lot of stuff that I use all the time. You know how they give you those coupons all the time, get a free screwdriver or something like that? Well, this is one of those El Cheapo free screwdrivers, and it strips off the first time you use it. Well, I kind of sharpened it to more of a point, and I'll use it for a center punch with a handle on it until the handle finally breaks. But it's just a little life hack that I'll show you. It may break on this one, but I'll probably get a couple of rivets out before it breaks. I'll be setting this, let me show you, give you an example. I'm going to be setting it on there and then whacking it with that ball peen hammer. But obviously I can't do it and film it all at the same time, because I'm going to be going back through here with it to do that. So I'll get them knocked out, and I'll pick the phone back up. Okay guys, it actually got so hot out there working on that Mustang, my phone was sitting in the sun, and it kind of got overheated just sitting there. It came in the garage for a minute. I'm gonna, while its phone's cooling off and I'm cooling off, I'm gonna give you the anatomy of a big pop rivet. All pop rivets work basically the same way, but this is a giant one. This is a 1/4 inch pop rivet. This is, in the body shop, you're gonna use these all the time. You're gonna run into them. It's what's holding the door handles on. Here's my T-Bird. It's what's holding that. It's what's holding that handle on my T-Bird. You guys will see this car hopefully in the next year or so. I'm gonna bring it in. We're gonna put a paint job on it. Anyhow, I'll show you that another time. This is what the pop rivet starts out. They call it a pop rivet because when it finally pops, it pops. But let me just show you. When I was explaining, I was knocking the center out of the pop rivet. What I was knocking out was this piece right here. This is called the mandrel. What it does is, as I put it in the pop rivet, and I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate, and I'm going to do this one. As it pulls it down, it peels. This is a peel rivet. It's different than another rivet, and the reason why they call it peel is see how it's peeled. See how that's been peeled back. Let's see if I can show you. And this was the head of it. Basically, when this thing was in the car, I'm hoping this is making sense. It was just like that. Let me get down here and see if you can kind of understand what's taking place here. You see, and the fact it was squeezing the two things together is what it was doing. What I did was I knocked the center out of it with the mandrel. Then I drilled the center out of that head right there, and that let the back of it fall off, and that's how it came out. Now, how this works is, this is a 1/4 inch pop rivet gun. This one is, hang on a second here. This is a 1/4 inch pop rivet gun. This one's made by Morrison. In my opinion, it's the best. I said earlier in the video that, you know, I love Harbor Freight. This is not a tool that you want to buy from Harbor Freight unless you just got to do one window. This tool right here is probably $200. And then this is the deep attachment. See how long this is here? That lets you go inside the door. I don't know, because you couldn't see me drilling that pop rivet out, but I had to go inside that door about that far. You'll see maybe when I put this back in there. This lets you go inside that door farther to grab this pop rivet. Now, I'm gonna try and film this and do this with one hand and see if you can see what takes place here. Keep an eye on the end of that. And this is a peel pop rivet. You'll see why. As I crank this handle down, see what it's doing? Now I'm gonna grab it again. Oops. 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 You see what's taking place there? It's peeling it back. Now, imagine, if you will, it's time and space, never mind. If there was two things in there, like if this thing was going, let it focus here, focus. Let me pull it up here. There we go. If you had two things in there, as this thing collapses, it pulls them tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and crank it one more time so you can see what happens. This is really hard to do with one hand. Let me switch hands here. Sorry for the dead time there, guys. Now it should pop this time. Hopefully it don't shoot across the shop here. And it did. Let's see if I can find it. Across my shop. See that thing covered up over there? That's another awesome car you guys will see. Hopefully, maybe some of you who are sophomore this year get to see that. That's a 65 Pontiac Tempest convertible. It was my first car. I've had it since I was 14 years old. Picture of it when I was probably 16 or 17. All right. What you heard, or what that pop was, is it broke the end of that mandrel off. And that's what the finished product is, and it's smashing two things together. So when I knocked the center out, what I'm doing is knocking that mandrel out of that thing, and that allows me to drill the head off. Out, I've got to pop this inside weather strip off. I've got to pop it off. That's going to give this window enough room to come out. I got to put the phone down and pull this window out, but it should just pull straight up out of here. I'll show you in a minute. Another step I got to show you guys. This is a door that doesn't have a door frame around the top of it to stop the glass. By that I mean, this is my truck, and most cars, see, it's got the top of this door frame, and that window stops up in there, and that positively stops the window. That Mustang there doesn't have that. This Mustang has is this thing right here, which stops the window. There's one in the back, and there's one in the front. And it's important that I get these in the right spot, because it stops where the window stops going up and down. So I'm going to take it off, and then I'll pull the window out. Take it out, and you can see this felt slides up against the window, and then when I get the window out, I'll show you there's a little bracket that hits the bottom of it. It's sitting in there like that. It hits the bottom of it and stops it from coming up. And you can see where the head of that was sitting. It's imperative that I get this right back in the same spot. This window is not going to let me sneak it by. I'm having to take out another stop. There's one here, that's the one I just took out, and there's one right here. These limit the adjustment of travel too. A lot of times I can wiggle these windows out. This one's just not going to let me do it. It's no big deal to take these out. That's just 11mm bolt. There's the window out of it, and see that bracket there and that one there. These first two stops that I took out, that's what when this window goes up, it locks around them. And their second ones came out of here, and they keep this roller from coming out. One there and one up there. But I just brought it in the garage so it stays safe. Okay, now that the window's out, I've got to knock out, there's 4 pop rivets. Got to knock the centers out of these and drill them out. And I've got to take this nut off and this nut off, and then that's going to let me take the whole regulator out. The actual motor, you can see part of it. That's the actual motor right there. But I've got to take this whole 9 yards. It's got to come out of this hole right here. Okay, there's the mandrels that I knocked out of these. I knocked them all out, no big deal. And now I'm going to drill them out. I'll try and drill one out while you're watching here. Sometimes what'll happen is the head of this thing will start spinning. Maybe we'll get lucky. Okay, there. See what we did? That released it. That's a nice sound, isn't it, guys? And that's a 1/4 inch rivet or drill bit I'm using, because it's a 1/4 inch pop rivet. You can use a slightly bigger drill bit, but you don't want to use a smaller one because it won't drill the hole out. Okay, now that frees up that part of the regulator, and I got to take these 2 11mm nuts off. There's one. There's the other one. Now what I'm going to do is, it may fall a little bit, but there's nothing hooked to it. Now if you can see that right there, that's a little line-up tool. It holds it in there. So what I'm going to have to do is, I'm going to have to grab this regulator and kind of lift it up a little bit. There we go. Now I've got to scoot it back. This is really difficult to do with my camera in one hand and the phone in the other. Or yeah, you understand what I'm saying. I'm going to have to put this phone down now. A whole lot of mess coming out of a small hole there. And there is the regulator. All right. Well, like I said, I didn't buy these parts. The owner bought them, and there's nothing wrong with it. This is the replacement part. And apparently it can fit a whole bunch of things. Hence, they gave me all these pigtail adapters to match up with the factory one here. And This is Ford Motor Company. Good stuff, lasted all this time. And it actually still works. I know what's wrong inside of here. There are these plastic rollers. I don't need to get into it. You can probably still buy them. They make a rebuild kit for this, but that's beside the point. The owner has supplied this part, and it's, I don't know if you can see it. Let's get around here. It's made in China, as President Trump says. Hope we don't get the China virus from it. So what I've got to do is I've got to pull these 8mm bolts out and replace the motor. Okay, I've got 2 of them out. There we go. Let's flip this over and compare the two. Yes, it looks to be the same. Now you'll notice that I've got vice grips on there. But that spring right there helps this motor work. A lot of times they won't move at all, but the potential's there. So I just put a couple clamps on there to keep it from moving. Back in the day, way before you guys that are in my class were born, some of the big old Chevrolet trucks had such a big spring on there. If you took the mechanism out of there, that thing would act like a pair of scissors, like a guillotine, and just whack your fingers off. But that's not the case with these. This one might not even move, but rather than find out the hard way, I just clamp it. So now I'm going to put the new motor in its place. Okay, you didn't miss anything other than me tightening up those 3 bolts. Now what I got to do is figure out which one of those pigtails matches this one. Basically all those they were just extensions to make it as long as this one to reach up to that plug that I undid in the car. So I'm going to go with the shortest one, and we're going to go back out to the car and try and reinstall this contraption back in this hole. All right, now I had to put 1 pop rivet in there already, but I couldn't film because I couldn't hold the camera and operate this pop rivet gun. Now I've got my faithful assistant Sam with me, so I'm going to put the other 3 in. So you see, I've got the pop rivet inserted in there. I'm holding the regulator in the right spot, and I'm still holding it. I'm gonna once I get 1 pull on it. As I showed you earlier in the video, that pop rivet is spreading apart. It'll stay there now, and then that's why they call it a pop rivet. Now, 2 more pop rivets. So make sure I got them together so I get at least 1 pull on it. There we go. One last one. All right, guys, remember the thing that I took the 2 10mm or 11mm nuts off? I've got to slide this track back on, and it slides on this slide. Put it inside the door. There we go, it's back in there. And put that there. And we're gonna just start the nuts. Now in this particular car, there's no adjustment here, but some cars, they will have adjustment on that, and that also changes the angle of the way the window goes up. All right, now we're gonna hook up the connector. And now that's hooked up. Now what I'm going to do is check, see if this window goes up and down before I put it all back together. Oh, look at that. And I am going to line it up. Remember, guys, when I told you the access holes, I've got to be able to get them lined up. And I need to go up just a pair more. There we go. All right, guys. Now, I couldn't show you me putting it in there, but remember when I showed you on this rivet gun why this thing was that deep? It's because I got to go way back in there. Now, I'm putting the pop rivet back in this glass. This particular job on this is not for a novice. Not that you guys can't do it, but it's not one of the easier ones, but it's worth you watching anyway to see it. So I'm putting the pop rivet in there. I'll put it back through the hole. All right, put all these stops back in and make sure I get them exactly in the right marks. I got the 2 back ones in, and they're exactly in the same mark. And you can see down against the window why it's so important that these be in the same spots, because this one is down here, controls how far that window comes up. This one here controls how far the window leads in and out. Now, they're identical to the ones that go up here. That's why when I took the car apart, I put the ones in the back, I put them in the floor of the back seat. The ones that go in the front, I put up in the front seat. I'm going to put the front ones in there. Before we button it up anymore, the stops are back in. I put the weather strip back on. We're going to check, make sure it's operating correctly. Goes all the way down. No binding, stops good. There we go. And see those stops, they're exactly where they were, exactly. If you don't have them right, that window will go up too far. Same as front and back. All right, go ahead and shut her off, Sam. All the plastic went back on there. Let me show you something, guys. See, these little bags, that's why it's a vapor barrier, and you just tuck them back inside of the holes in those the door panel. Remember the fingers that went down in there? That's what they do. But it's important that they that this goes back up on there and no rips or tears. It went back on there nice. Next thing to go on is the trim panel. Guys, I'm not filming putting this thing all back together, basically reversing the procedure. I think you guys are smart enough to figure that out. Guys, and it's important when you get done doing a job like that, you reach inside the door and get all of this stuff out. If not, it'll rattle when you open and shut the door. All right, guys. I was gonna say I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm sure it wasn't really that entertaining, but I hope it was informative. That is one of the more difficult window regulators or motors to replace, because of the fact that it doesn't have the frame around the top of the glass. But we're replacing window motors and window regulators is something we do in the body shop all the time. I can't wait for us to get back in there together. If you guys want to reach out to me, put something in the comments, ask any questions, or if there's something else you want to see, let me know. Anyway, I miss you guys, and hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.